to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays with Skai. Today we're going to be speaking to a retailer, Ocado Retailer in fact, and that's Ben O'Mahony. So tune in, we're going to be talking about the Trade Desk partnership, we're going to be talking about personalised ads, and we're going to be talking about standardization of retail media offerings.
So hello Ben, and welcome to Retail Media Thursdays. As a starting point, it'd be great to introduce you properly and get an idea for your job, on your role and what you do.
Cool, yeah, so I've been at Ocado Retail for just shy of 2 years now. Ocado Retail is a joint venture between M&S and Ocado. So we utilise the Ocado infrastructure, the robots, the technology that is part of Ocado Group. And we are the largest online-only supermarket in the world. So it's a pretty cool label to have. In terms of my role at Ocado Retail, I lead on ad tech and data partnerships, focusing heavily on the off-site proposition. So off-site being quite simply being able to connect with customers outside of the retail environment, which for us is unique in being only Ocado.com. So looking at what ad tech we're using and cool stuff in data partnerships that we can do.
Nice. We always ask our people on this to talk about their peak of the week, so something you've seen, something you've heard, something you've read, or a client you've met or a customer you've met that really excited you about retail media.
Yeah, so I think actually to the point of the data partnerships piece, a conversation I had this week was with a brand, one of our key suppliers, and we're talking around being able to collaborate first-party data. Use cases are pretty broad in terms of what we're looking at, but ultimately it's a completely new space, one that I think a few years back you just couldn't even imagine happening. The technology's there to enable us to do it in quite an easy way, if you like, in terms of how we'll take that to market. And it's just exciting to know that we would be able to get a really holistic view of customers. You know, our key suppliers have a hell of a lot of first-party data that we can look to collaborate with, and in doing so we're going to be able to get some cool use cases out, even better activations and measurements, so really exciting.
Nice. And then where are we? What's this pub like? Why is it relevant to you?
Yeah, so the Sqaure Pig, I used to work, and my first job in media was just down the road in New Oxford Street. So I must admit, this was one of those places where just before getting on the train at Holborn, I would stop off for a quick pint. Very happy memories, and really where it all started for me around this area, yeah.
Nice. Ben, so talking about the retail media marketplace, the IAB said this week that 62% of UK retailers now have a retail media offering. I was looking at some stats for Europe actually, in 2020 it was 40 retailers had a retail media offering. Now in 2022, as it ended and going into 2023, we've seen that grow to like 89, so more than double. Crowded marketplace, lots of competitors, I guess. What makes Ocado Retail unique, and what's your differentiator?
That's a good question. So I think ultimately is when you look at who we are as a retailer and where we've come from. So as I mentioned, it's a joint venture between M&S and Ocado. But ultimately, Ocado as a brand has been building over a number of years and has a really loyal base of customers. So I think when we think about everything we do as a retailer, it always starts with the customer. And actually what I do in my role and everything within my team and the wider marketing team, it starts with the customer as well. So that's one of the principles in everything that we as a retailer do. That's not necessarily indifferent to other retailers, but we're very conscious about our customers and the loyalty they have for us. I think the other piece to it is just in the sense that we only have one point of purchase for where a customer can go and buy the product. So we find that the customers who come to Ocado often will stay with us. We have, I think, 4 times the amount of range versus any other retailer in the UK. So people tend to dwell on site a lot more and tend to browse products quite a lot. But then in terms of how that translates into my world, it's all about being able to tell a story of the customer and how is the customer journey looking from an off-site to an on-site perspective. And that is really unique because there is no drop-off in how we can view that journey, because you don't have to tap a loyalty card in store. You just, everything that you come to do on Ocado.com is what we're measuring. So yeah, it's a very unique proposition.
It's good to be unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Ben, I want to talk about a new partnership of yours. I think everyone in the UK has been sort of waiting with bated breath to see who would be the first retailer to follow in the footsteps of Walmart and do a partnership with the Trade Desk. It was you. It was announced a few weeks ago now. So what's the benefit of this partnership for the advertiser?
Yeah, so well, you've done the sales plug for me. Of course, I was keen to talk about our partnership with the Trade Desk. What's unique about it is we as a retailer tend to move at pace in everything that we're looking to do. So we're very conscious, as I mentioned, around how we are utilising customer data. But what we're quite unique in is that when we see opportunity and demand from the market, we look to move in that direction as quickly as possible. So yes, exactly, they launched a partnership in the US with Walmart. That's been phenomenal. I mean, we talk about the reports that are coming out from Walmart around profitability in this space. But really, it was going down to the crux of reviewing the market, seeing what made sense for us as a retailer in terms of that first partnership we went to. And the Trade Desk ultimately were the best option for us. And because we have such strong alignment in our future vision for where retail media is going to be going. So for instance, the Trade Desk are really hot on ID. So they were the launch of UID, and EUID will be coming to the market, I'm hearing in the not too distant. And if you think about the way that our data works as a persistent ID, being able to align to an ad tech vendor who is so on the front foot with that sort of thing, we can see such opportunity in the future as well. So the benefits to advertiser as well is ultimately this is the true realization of self-serve. By enabling us to put the right audiences and the right data, though very privacy constrained, with the advertisers, we strongly believe that it gives them the opportunity to run better advertising and to ultimately improve the digital experience of our customers, and that is the principle to everything that we're looking to do. Improve the experience, the digital experience of our customers, and partner with ad tech vendors who can get us there. So that's what the Trade Desk is for us.
So Ben, in our recent State of Retail Media survey to 250 marketers we spoke to, one of the biggest and core problems they talked about was managing multiple retail media networks in one place at once. You know, different systems, different attribution windows, different auction types, etc., etc. So there was this kind of need for and this call for standardization. What do you think? Is that like mission impossible, or do you think there's like enough will within the stakeholders across the whole board to kind of bring standardization to the fore and also then deliver the benefits that will provide for, you know, the consumer, the advertiser, and the retailer?
Yeah, so where we're heading is in the right direction. I'm always a little bit dubious about how quickly we'll get there and what it will actually look like for the future. But you know, think about the IAB, for instance, working groups bringing together all different parts of the industry, whether it's agency, retailer, advertiser. Everybody getting together and starting to work through what does standardization look like. I think one of the points that I always think is a bit of an interesting one to think about is the big call seems to be on the retailer. Retailers need to standardize, but if you think about the amount of advertisers versus retailers, it feels like actually the advertisers might need to be the ones who kind of give us direction as a collective on measurement is probably the first place to start, right, with standardization. What is the expectation for measurement? So I think that there is opportunity out there in these discussions. I also reflect on sort of retail media being a very hyped part of the industry and very similar to what happened with programmatic a number of years ago. And there must be lessons learned from that, because ultimately it went in the direction of a lot of fragmentation and a lot of complexities that probably weren't necessarily required. So I really do hope that the industry can come together, and I think because of the opportunity everybody can see in what retail media can deliver, that we'll get there in the long run. Yeah.
It's actually just made me laugh a little bit there. Like, if you think about, you know, what you said about the collaboration that's needed, you know, probably if I speak to a brand, they'll say it's on the retailer, and when you speak to a retailer, you say it's sort of, there is on the brand. But I guess it's a guide, and it needs both collaboration, because realistically, I understand what you're saying is like you need the brands to guide on what does measurement look like, what standardization look like, what do they need, and that might help you guys guide on, from a retail perspective, on what do you open up in terms of data, or etc. So.
Well, to that point, the relationship between the retailer and the brand is very unique, right? Because it goes way beyond what we're looking to do in media activations. So I think that's a key difference to all of this, is ultimately the advertiser on one end has such a strong relationship and a broad relationship with us as a retailer that we can utilise that to make progress. But as I say, this sometimes feels like somewhat of a siloed part to that overall relationship, and maybe it broadens out. As I say, retail media is growing in importance for retailers. Headwinds that are making cost prices go up, and looking for opportunity into where we can drive value back into the business with assets like data. I really do think that those relationships and that principle will help us progress for sure.
I think we spoke, off camera a while back about like personalisation of ads within retail media, and I actually saw an article by Forbes the other day where it kind of described retail media as being targeted ads versus personalised ads. So from your perspective, like what do you see as the difference between like targeted versus personalisation in advertising? And I guess also like when we think about retail media, is personalisation of ads scalable?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about targeted versus personalisation, there's so many different interpretations as to what that really is. From my perspective, a targeted ad is the most basic form of saying this is the type of customer that I think I should be addressing, but really just go and find them anywhere. Personalisation is more in layering in other areas of data, so contextual targeting. You can utilise data points that would say, for instance, a user is interested in, say, chocolate, but also seems to be a price-sensitive customer. So does that mean you have a bit more of a dynamic creative in how much it calls out the price point versus another? Doing that at scale, I think, remains to be seen. We know the data's there. We know that the richness of the data can get us to that place. In terms of doing that at scale comparable to what we know in industry right now, I'm not so sure if that's going to be achievable. But in saying that, fewer, bigger, better in terms of how you go out and activate campaigns, not necessarily having to find the broad reach of customers, but finding the right ones with the right creative, I think is probably somewhat more important than just having mass scale with a slightly targeted ad. And what I hope every retailer and the industry as a whole is going to work towards is that customer journey, bringing a customer from whatever off-site element they're on at that time with a personalised ad that can carry through to the retailer's site or potentially in store. That is a true personalised ad experience, and if we can get to that by utilising the data, then that's really the ambition, right?
I think maybe I'm plugging Skai here, but I think from our perspective, like technology has to come and help as well. I mean, it's why some of the reasons why your trade desk partnership becomes so interesting, right? But I think there's an element of how technology, and this is what we're thinking about, how does technology help in delivering that experience?
Yeah, and if you look at how ad tech is developing, so whether it's in the space of data clean rooms or existing ad tech vendors out there, they're all looking at how they can utilise the first party data to get to that end goal. I'm just really intrigued to see where it goes, because like I say, there's so many different directions each ad tech vendor or data clean room can go in, and there's so much opportunity in what we can be doing with each of them. Again, maybe that's a bit of standardization and collaboration that's required to get to that point, yeah.
We've come full circle with all the conversation.
We have.
Well, thanks, Ben. We normally then move to the next step, which is I'm going to ask you 5 random questions. Yes or no answers, pretty much.
Okay.
You don't know what they are. They come off the top of my head, so we'll kick off and let's see how you do.
Cool.
WhatsApp or phone call?
WhatsApp.
Walk or cab?
Walk.
Breakfast, do you have it or do you skip it?
Have it. Used to skip it. Have it every time now.
Okay. Gym or no gym?
Gym.
In store or online?
Online. Come on.
But I was trying to catch you out. Oh well, you passed.
Thank you.
Anyway, look, thank you, Ben. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.